Welcome everyone. Good to see you all, and I think it's time to start the last session of this fair. We are very happy to be here. I'm from Europe, from the Netherlands. It's my first trip to the US again, and I'm really excited to be here. And if I feel the atmosphere on the floor, I'm really excited to see that everyone is cooperating so good together. And I think that's the same counts for the health and hygiene. And so we have a nice session for 1 hour around that. My name is Marcel. I'm working for a company called Simwave. At the end, we do Q&A so everyone can address their questions. But maybe it's good first that the panelists introduce themselves. Can I start with you, James?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is James Mitchell. I oversee health, safety, environment, and medical operations for Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, which owns and operates NCL, Oceania, and Region 7 Seas Cruises.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dahlgren. I am the Senior Vice President for Global Marine Operation for Royal Caribbean Group, overseeing the 5 cruise brand of Royal Caribbean, which is Royal Caribbean International, Celebrity Cruises, Silversea, as well as TUI and Hapag-Lloyd.
And hi everybody, good to see you all this afternoon. My name is Paul Morgan. I'm Vice President Compliance and Quality Assurance with VIKAND. We support many cruise lines with medical, public health, and also commercial and yachts for medical and public health operations.
Excellent. So we got ourselves a great panel, and you know, what I see is that everything opens up again, and in Europe, different industries, and I think the guest experience with it is really important after all this lockdowns. So I'm just wondering, if we compare ourselves with the different industries, you know, where do we set the bar in terms of health and hygiene?
Well, you know, when we talk about compliance and we talk about health and safety, anything that in regards to the well-being of our passengers and our crew members, you know, with anything regarding security and safety, environmental compliance, and especially these days public health, you know, when we do a great job as an industry, when we do a great job on board the vessels, no one knows we exist, and that's just kind of the way that we like it, because you're doing things behind the scenes. And the goal for people when they come on board a ship is to be able to enjoy their vacations. And when the goal for the crew members when they're on board, you know, are to work on board and to provide an excellent experience for themselves and also for the guests. And so when we do all those things right, you know, everything flows without the acknowledgement of the health and safety standards. But the bar that we set is always to provide that environment for all the passengers on board, whether you're a guest or crew.
Guys, you put a bar industry-wide?
Yeah, I think as James says there, I mean, as an industry, we are very lucky to have the various bodies that set our standards and our benchmark, whether it be CLEAR, whether it be CDC, whether it be EU Healthy Gateways. So for all the cruise lines to which we work, we've all got that base standard, which is our start point. And I think that's really important. As an industry, we've got the same start point. We will talk shortly, I think, about some of the slightly differing requirements between those, but as an industry, we've got a great benchmark which we all kick off from.
I was going to say, Marcel, I have to add on what you said, Paul, because I think as an industry, first of all, isn't it fantastic why we're all here together today and being able to look back at the time that's now in the past, and we have moved on from a lot of this. Lots of ships is out sailing with lots of very happy guests, and obviously with all the different partners that is here in the room today supporting us in this journey. And on health and safety, we are not competitive, we are collaborative, and we work together. So I think that's one key thread of the industry, is that we work together and we do not compete on health and safety. And that's something that we have clearly learned through many years, and the partnership between all the brands.
That's quite special, actually, because in other industries you see a complete different approach between companies. But what makes the cruise, I think, also quite difficult and special is that you are dealing with a lot of different governmental organizations, different countries, different regions. Can you tell us something about that, Patrick?
No, sure. Thanks, Marcel. So I think, yeah. So I think that's quite unique with the cruise industry. Sure, airline industry as well is moving to different countries. But if you look at like an itinerary, so if you look at the evolution of what happened during COVID and so to speak, as when we started up the first ships again, which for the Royal Caribbean Group side was with TUI cruises over in Europe back last summer, which was actually only closed down for a couple of months and then restarted again. And then working directly with, for example, a German health authority, local health authorities. And that's one thing that's very unique because, of course, along the way on itinerary, you may visit 5 different sovereign nations which have a completely different idea of how to tackle this pandemic. And I think the strength of the industry have always been and will continue to be the collaboration that we have between the different authorities, that we're very adaptable as an industry. And for us, whether it was the restart of operation in Europe past summer and during the fall, or late fall when we started up in Singapore, so dealing with the Singaporean authority, and that was all pre-vaccines. The vaccine really were the big game changer. So when the vaccine came about, that's obviously when the massive restart of cruise industry started, and consequently different authorities took maybe a different approach of when they felt comfortable with it, and the different levels that we obviously see have evolved since, whether they require 95% vaccines or not, or whether it is 100%, or whether it is curated shore excursions, whether they require masks on board or not. It varies by both destination and by turn port and where the ship really is cruising from. So it's been an interesting journey and continue to be an interesting journey, but we have 40 plus ships operating now across the globe.
Yeah, I think the key word is adaptability, and as an industry, being such a mobile industry and moving of assets from port to port in countries around the world, our global presence as an industry really lends itself to being able to take evolving regulations that we know are going to change and hopefully are going to change for the better, that are going to change for the safer, and are going to be easier to operate in eventually. Having the ability to work with specific countries and acknowledge what their risk tolerance is, be open not only just to complying but also going above and beyond in some instances because of our own risk tolerance. I think that's also important, and especially with the next year and getting through this next flu season and into the first quarter, we continue to partner with the CEC Maritime unit here in the U.S. and then overseas with the EU Healthy Gateways and then individual ports and provinces, as Captain Dahlgren mentioned.
And just to follow on from what James says, I think that's another credit to the industry, that the standards that apply are not the minimum. So, where we see the benefits of those increased standards, we do this with safety as well. We don't take the minimum standards, we take the best wherever we're going through different areas of compliance. So we don't want to keep changing it for the crew. We take where we see to be the best standards and apply them, which is a credit to cruise industry.
And how do you keep up with all the requirements of all the different nations' ports, because they can change over time as well?
Yeah, I was going to say to that point, Marcel, I think, first of all, of course, each of the cruise line have their capability working together with different, but we all collaborate. So we work together. CLIA have had an immense impact on this and really helped us really continue to work together. And when new regulations and new changes come up, they're very rapid and fast to work together with all of us. So it's really about collaboration ultimately to get that information and that adaptability.
And we learned, as an industry, we've learned, as a public, we've learned a lot about how to, the science behind COVID-19. We've learned a lot about the treatment, the testing protocols, and the way that we want to evolve our operations to be able to handle this situation, but also other situations in the future. And learning is really the biggest thing with the industry, because we've been through so many traumatic and experiences and crisis. We've dealt with crisis in the industry over the last 20 to 30 years with various examples, and we've been able to learn from those and continue to evolve, whether it's on a security standpoint, a safety standpoint, an environmental compliance standpoint, or in this case, a public health or a medical standpoint. We continue to learn, and we're open-minded to that.
And do you really see big differences between like Europe and the US?
I was going to say, I mean, there are small differences. I mean, there's differences in vaccination requirements. So you've got differences in distances. I mean, social distancing. At one point, we had 3 different definitions of social distancing. Reporting, I think, is a big difference. There's far more stringent reporting requirements across in the US. But again, in the end, I think you look at these standards as a whole, and you develop your practices to best fit for your operation.
Yeah, I think in general terms, it is very similar. It's just that it feels like it's big differences when you look at the level we look at a lots of times. But in the end, the most important thing is that the guests don't really notice much. And that's the whole key point, to retain the guest experience, making sure that when a guest goes on board a cruise ship, is as fun and amazing experience as it was prior to COVID, and it's very little that they see comparatively to it was before. And sure, certain places mask may be required versus not, and vaccination rates being different, but otherwise it is fairly similar. And that's the key point with everything that we did. For example, when we work with the Healthy Sail panel that we put together with the greatest mind in epidemiology, biosecurity, and so forth, and all of those reports were shared with both authorities and with other cruise lines, and working together with NCL on this and the other cruise lines was really a tremendous effort to change a lot of things for us. So I think, and the retention really is about making sure that the guests do not see much difference, but have a safer environment.
Yeah, conceptually, it's the same, which is that we all want the same thing. Everyone here wants the same thing. Regulatory authorities want the same, which is to be able to cruise safely, to be able to vacation and travel safely, and to be able to ensure that, you know, if we ever experience this again, we have better data, better technology, and better practices in place for that. So the large scale is very much the same, and then definitions and interpretations and granular level details of regulations become different in ports, but the goal is the same.
Okay, excellent. Yesterday I visited the show, and I think Paul was there as well, and there was a panel about innovation. That what I learned yesterday, there's quite a lot of innovation. Has there been a lot of innovation in terms of health and safety?
Sure. No, I mean, clearly innovation have played a massive role in this, right? And alongside with, if you look at the public health situation, obviously that the innovation on that side and how to make sure from medically that it's safer and better. But innovation was always part of the DNA and what most of us as cruise lines was doing. This is how we elevated the experience over the years. We innovated to elevate. And I think some of the items that were in the works just before COVID hits really did help us because, for example, from our side, and I know the same with many of the other cruise lines, we were working on a completely reworked muster. So gone are the days when the guest comes on board and have to stand there in the sun for an extended period of time waiting to go through this very antiquated muster system, where today you do it basically in your convenient time on the phone or in the cabin. The retention of actually the knowledge, you have, you know, improved the safety side, and the experience is just amazing. So that's one piece. Then, you know, we have, for our side, just prior to COVID hit too, we had 90% of our guests checking in and doing everything online and with their phone. So they had a very much frictionless entrance to the ship and debark from the ships. Again, debunking all these lines and all this previously experienced, which obviously helped with social distancing and everything, and low touch and so forth, which was huge, right? And we upgraded all our medical facilities. There was lots of thoughts put into that and how we do that and how you have an infectious, non-infectious side and how you react to all these different things. And I think an industry as a whole, because we were so innovative, it really helped us to pass through and get all these acceptances from government agencies and so forth very quickly. Once the regulators and so forth realizing how safe cruise is, and partnering, another thing that I was going to mention is also when we partnered through the Healthy Sail panel with University of Nebraska, for example, we went down to the granular level of releasing billions of biospheres into the air conditioning systems on board several of our ships to test how COVID do spread on board, especially when we came to the stage where, the aerosolization, right? And we come to realize that all the investments we have done over the years actually helped us hugely, showing that the cruise ships are a safer place to be than most places on land. And having, fresh air coming from the ocean on one side of the ship, going through several levels of filtration, and we did, most cruise lines, upgrade our filtration system further, but realizing that it's close to hospital-grade standards in terms of air exchanges on the cruise ship versus what it is on land. So lots of this helped us in the dialogue and also with consumers to build the trust for the industry again as well. So certainly the safest place to be.
And innovation is a very interesting thing if you think about innovation as a concept as well, because things that you are innovative in the moment that are a one-year problem, let's say, and you are trying to find ways to immediately address a crisis situation or a pandemic or an emergency, you become very innovative very quickly to find solutions to the problems, and then you have a tier of innovation that's your five things that are 5 years out that you're working on that are going to affect your operations in 5 years, and then there's the imaginative level, which is stuff that you're 25 years from now going to be doing in an industry. And those three tiers, it's funny because at a certain point you get to that point on that tier 3, and things that FaceTime and touchless or frictionless check-ins and no more tickets are things that 25 years ago didn't exist. And so technology catches up pretty quickly. These types of events help to accelerate that process. But when thinking about innovation and the way that it helps operations or even in the interior decorating world and the way that we look at a guest experience is going to change, and things that we think about in 25 years in that imagination bucket are going to become a reality, and then there's going to be another set of tier 3 that are 2075 that will be in place by then. But the 5-year and the 1-year initiatives are the things that we're seeing now and that have been accelerated because of the pandemic, and we feel strongly that the cruising experience when in 2022 and beyond is going to be that much better for guests.
And to follow on there, I mean, walking around the show floor here, I mean, innovations are in this room, and this is the benefit of a show like this. But the areas that I'd like to particularly look at, in addition to what James and Patrick have mentioned, air purification. What we know now compared to what we know 2 years ago is quite amazing. So we had a good standard, but we continue to improve the standard and build on what we've got. The other area is passenger screening. The best thing we can do with infections is keep them off the vessel. And I mean, if you think where we were 2 years ago, you filled a form in and basically you answered no, 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 and you went on board. We are far more better now at the screening side. We're far more better at the air purification side and controlling airflows, because now it's all about controlling infection, and hopefully that word COVID is replaced by infection. I think I heard that yesterday. So.
Okay. And do you see more innovations coming, for example, on the screening side? It's easier to screen people, or?
Well, I don't want to steal my colleagues' messaging here, but the whole contactless thing I think has taken off, and I'm going to hand over to Patrick and James, because they've mentioned just before the meeting about the face recognition, which I think is a huge thing.
No, I think from screening from that end, but if you reference like COVID, COVID screening, I think you've already seen a huge evolution, and it will continue, right? So it will be lots of improvements that will happen, and it's through innovation. So, and I think that's the point here, that whether it is COVID or other diseases, infections, disease overall, or whether it is, you know, just the frictionless smoothness of coming on board and doing what we're supposed to do, creating the most amazing guest experience. And again, with the partners here today, looking at all the amazing ideas that comes out, that's what we want to do. We want to create this great guest experience because it's superior to anywhere else that you can be.
Can you tell a little bit more about the guest experience? I mean, you are sailing now with a number of ships. I think you just mentioned 41 ships. What is the guest experience? What feedback do you get from your guests?
Yeah, so on that side, I just came off. I had 2 shorter cruises on Celebrity Apex. I'm going Saturday, I think it is, on Odyssey of the Seas. So new ships coming out, being named, same as before, but amazing guest experience. And what we see with the guests right now is that we have never had as high Net Promoter Score ever in the history. So we're sitting at low 90s, which is about 20%, 20 points higher than we used to have prior to COVID. And it's a combination of things. First of all, of course, we all here in the room too, we want to move on and get on to a great, safe experience. And cruise has really proven that it's, first of all, not only an amazing experience, but it's safer than other means of experiences. And the third piece, which I think is the most important, outside of the product itself that's being delivered, is the crew. And the crew delivers this product now, even though they did a great job before. The passion that they have for the industry, for the brands they work for the product that they deliver, it's emotional. You see crew crying when you come on board the ships when they start off. It is really emotional for everyone. So the guest experience and the product that's being delivered is far superior than it's ever been. And it just blows my mind, even though over 20 years being both on ships and in the industry, right? It's really fantastic time.
Yeah, and right now, especially, you know, we do acknowledge what the risks are, and we address those risks, and we make people, or at least we do the best we can to communicate what we're doing to our guests and also to our crews, so that when they come on board, they feel safe. And that's always what our goal has been since, you know, the times that we worked on board ships ourselves. And then also with, you know, now working with our brands, is that whenever people come on board, they need to feel safe. They need to make sure, they need to have that sense of that, you know, the company is in control and we're putting in place measures to protect them. And the crew feel that as well. I'll echo what Patrick said, that with the restarts, going back to the ships and seeing what the crew that are getting back to work, their emotions, seeing what they, you know, how they feel, and being in the service industry and being able to finally service guests that have waited a long time to get back on board vessels. It's important, it's moving, and it's, you know, I think right now we are providing a great cruise experience in the safest environment possible.
I totally agree. And one thing I would add there with the innovations, that, you know, what we've...
And I think we all feel that coming out of COVID in a sense, and being able to touch and feel, especially in the area of accommodations and design and so forth. It's a touch and feel industry. This is not something you can do over Zoom. So you need to connect with people, and at least what I got from my team, at least so far, both from yesterday and today, is that they think it's just amazing being able to connect with people in person. That's only been over the phone and Zoom before in the last year and a half. And again, the touch and feel of the products and the ideas that's here. So I'm not going to mention anyone specifically, but it seems to be really good progress. And thank you for everyone for being here, first of all.
And similarly, I wouldn't want to call out any particular, but the 3 areas that have struck me in walking around the floor and what we've just talked about over the last 30 minutes, hand hygiene, air purification, and contactless. Now that's just from one walk around the floor there. Those are 3 areas where I particularly see are relevant to health and hygiene. but there are others, and I think that's where, with all our companies, that's where people are out. They're looking at it. The people that are looking at design know as well what we need to do for ships. So it's a combination of efforts to pull to those innovations that are going to help us out.
And I'll really echo what Captain Dahlgren said about being in person with our vendors, because the cruise line industry itself is an industry based on relationships. It's really the travel industry. It's a relationship industry. It's the relationships that we have, that the guests have with our crew members, and they come back to our ships because of our crew members or because of a specific crew member sometimes. It's the relationship that the crew members have with one another, that we have with the crew members on board from the corporate office, that we have with our stakeholders, our investors, and then also our industry partners at forums like this, where you get to be in person for a change instead of over a Zoom call, and being able to touch and feel some of the products and see the demos in person. So I think that's important that we, that's a great point that Patrick made about being in person, because it really helps us build up the confidence in one another and being able to bring back to cruising the way it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I think this is a good moment to end. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for sharing your expertise and your insights and what happened in the last months, and that we have a really nice industry and a lot of innovation going on. It was great to gather all again. If we talk about networking, there is a network drink today at 3:30 p.m. This was the last panel. And at 3:30 p.m. there is a network drink here, and that is sponsored by Vistama, Eumar and Cabria. Thank you very much all.